So here's the developing storm. Now, this is a non-tropical storm developing along the front. So when you get a low pressure system developing on the front, it's actually called a frontal wave. Very, very common. This whole scenario is very common in the wintertime. We call them nor'easters. But this time of year, that's kind of a funny word to use, but it's essentially what this is. There's a big dip in the jet stream in here that's powering this system to develop off the southeast coast. Exactly what happens with big nor'easters. Well, we also have a strong high pressure system up here. So between those two, the air is being squeezed, and that's what's going to cause the issues along the coast. So here we are Saturday morning, and you can see we have an onshore flow into North Carolina on that very vulnerable coast there. But the system is not really cranked up yet. So this is not going to be the strongest onshore flow along the east coast. I think North Carolina's got to luck out a little bit here in that stronger flow is going to be north of them. But you can see already we're getting onshore flow all along this coast. It's just that the moisture with the system and the rain along the coast here on Saturday morning is just in the south. All right, watch up here in the upper left as we go forward in time, and you're going to watch the models. There are the three models we're going to track. The Google AI model, by the way, is not tracking this system. That's why I don't have it on there. But watch as we go, and notice they all pretty much agree. This is moving north. Well, so as it moves north, the winds on the North Carolina coast are going to switch to the northeast initially. So by Sunday morning, that's where the focus is going to be. But look at this. This is all in the Delmarva, the Jersey Shore, Sunday morning, moisture blasting in there. So this is going to be ugly weather coming off the ocean. This is not, if this were snow, this would be a giant snowstorm coming in there, but it's not snow, obviously. All right, let's go forward in time and see what happens. Now we get some disagreement. The European, both the regular European and the AI model, hold the system back. The GFS moves it north. But the point is that the main thrust of the moisture is up here, not in North Carolina. So by later on Sunday, that's going to, they're going to kind of let up on the North Carolina vulnerable beaches there. And this is just going to be ugly, windy weather. Windy at the coast, rainy inland in the big cities of the Northeast, looks like on Sunday. And Monday, this thing kind of hangs out in here. Now, and we still have onshore wind on Monday. So this is not like something that's just ending up and moving out quickly, just a continuous period of kind of nasty weather. Now, the question is, could this end up being tropical? If it ends up in here, no. North of North Carolina, the water gets quite cool, or I should say almost certainly not. The water gets quite cool. This is a big sprawling system. It's unlikely that this is going to take on anything tropical. South of North Carolina, then you have the Gulf Stream, and then you have kind of a different story, although the Gulf Stream does kind of go out there. So, if it gets in just the right little spot, there's a maybe. But in any case, it doesn't change the effects on the coast. Nasty weather all up and down the northern half of the East Coast. Then by Tuesday, you see things get a little scrambled, and the European models, again, keep it in the same general area, again, pushing the moisture in here all the way into Tuesday. GFS starts to move offshore. So it kind of makes a loop, if you notice, all in that same general area. I think the main artifact of that is higher than normal tides along the coast where the wind is onshore, and just nasty weather with that just continuous wind there in off the ocean. All right, one more thing to take a look at, and that's out here in the Gulf of Mexico. Hurricane Center is still painting that 10% chance there in that little corner of the Gulf right there. But the system is actually, it's kind of big system here, and likely down to the south in the Pacific, we're likely going to get a Tropical Storm Raymond out of that, so that's where the energy with that system is. And this one up here will be inland in Mexico probably later on today, so that's why the odds are super low on that. So, the good news on Jerry. I think better news today for North Carolina on the coastal system, but this extended period of nasty weather and higher than normal tides along much of the East Coast from the Carolinas all the way up to New England. Crazy.
Almost this inability for that area of low pressure to not escape. And Bryan, when we talk about classifying this thing as tropical or non-tropical, even subtropical. You've driven the point home before. A non-tropical low still picks up moisture from the Atlantic, but it's the inner workings of that. In the simplest way to describe it, this thing would maybe become subtropical if the Gulf Stream's involved and if the inner workings are fueled by the water.
Yes, and it loses its front, so it takes time because this is part of a frontal system. So the system the whole environment has to warm up enough to get rid of the cold front. You know, there's a significant cold front. It's going to push all the way through South Florida here, which will probably be our first fall cold front of the year, late in the weekend. So it has to completely get rid of that and be an independent entity to be considered even subtropical, partially tropical. So, you know, it takes a lot of doing if there's real cold air that's rotating around and coming in over the warm Atlantic water, and that's what's really powering the system, which is what's going to be powering the system here for a good while. If it were to sit farther south and just sit there, and then the warm water kind of warms up all that air, so there's no front, no delineating line between the cold and the warm anymore, you know, then you get a maybe. But we're talking about some days looking into next week.
It's on par with the hurricane season, though, in terms of things just being kind of weird and funky. Yeah. I mean, as we watch this coastal low, we'll be watching very likely Hurricane Jerry off to the east, which is yet again another very lucky miss for the eastern seaboard, even Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So interesting season, and you know, congrats in Florida for the first fall front, so to speak.
Yeah, hope you like the cooler temps.
Oh, yeah, hope you like the cooler temps.
Officially arrived into fall once Florida gets the taste.
Then it's official.
Yeah.
Then it's official. Hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross joining us this morning. Thanks, Bryan.